Hello, Fran Murray here, speaking on behalf of the Australian Council of TESOL Associations, that is Teaching English to Speakers of Other Languages. The focus in this presentation is on the vital role of first language in learning, particularly the role that rich literature plays in the children's own language, the language they do speak and understand, in authentic bilingual education. Acknowledgement of country. ACTA acknowledges Indigenous Australians and their lands on which we live and work. ACTA also acknowledges and respects the Indigenous educational experience and wisdom brought to learning that continues to enrich all Australians. On the 14th of December 1972, the newly elected Prime Minister, Mr. Gough Whitlam, made the following announcement. The federal government will launch a campaign to have Aboriginal children living in distinctive Aboriginal communities given their primary education in Aboriginal languages. This was a revolutionary statement and point in time. For the first time, there was official acknowledgement that these children had a right to understand what they were being taught in school, to access an education that was comprehensible. And from that moment on, 1973 onwards, a very strong bilingual bicultural program was developed until it was dismantled in 2009. During that time, there were thousands of pieces of literature developed in the children's first languages, something I'm going to go into further. To deny a people education in their own language, where that is possible, is to treat them as a conquered people and to deny them respect, stated the Honourable Kim Beazley in 1999. This was when the vibrant bilingual program of 22 schools, educating well over half of the remote Indigenous students bilingually, was diminished from 22 programs to 12. According to UNESCO's estimates, as much as 40% of the global population does not have access to an education in the language they speak or understand. This human right needs to be acknowledged and re-established, revitalised for our remote Indigenous language speaking students, and the rich literature produced, which continued to be produced from that time until 2009, fortunately was digitised and is available.
Hello, my name is Anita Painter. I come from Brunga. I am the language and cultural teacher at the school and cultural advisor. I just wanted to share a story that's been done in Creole, and the title of the story is called Lil Juk Juk Bin Suki Baby. Now, before I talk about this book, I just want to say some things about what is the moral of the story. We all know that it is a lesson that teaches readers and listeners how to behave in a world or in a society, in a community, in different cultures. Sometimes the moral of the story is usually found in children's literature, I believe, like this one. I mean, for example, we know that Beauty and the Beast, The Wolf Who Cried, Good Samaritan, and they have moral of the story, moral in that story, like Beauty and the Beast. The moral is beauty is on the inside, not just the appearance, the outside. And the Good Samaritan, the moral of the story would be help those in need. So I believe this story in Creole, I believe, has a moral. And I believe the moral of the story is about listening and safety when you're out bush, so but before I do, I just want to read just some just a page of this story. This illustration, this picture where it says, I'll just read this in Creole. It says, one day, Dijan Majawan Juk been go walk about Karamimola little one baby. They will all go along a riverside. Now, this story actually starts off with something good and positive. The mother hen has 5 baby chicken, and they are just going for walkabout at bush along the riverside. I'll just read this second one here, just one more. It says here that Majuan Juk will say, come on, Yubala, we go DJ. And they will all run lion. But this one little Juk will always be last one. Even all they cry all away. Now, when you really think about this story, the kids know this part of the story, that there is a problem already. There is a problem in this story already. Because when I read this part, the kids know exactly, uh-oh, that little one, him last one, and him always cry. Him have to hurry up because buffalo might get him, or snake might get him, or something might get him. So that's the first thing the kid knows about the story. They know. Now, down through the generations, Aboriginal people, stories were told orally. It was never written down. It was just oral text with knowledge, spirituality, and wisdom. Indigenous storytelling is a way to, I believe, instill a knowledge of the mind, body, and soul. And this story starts with a mother hen who went walkabout with her 5 baby chicken, walkabout along the riverside. On the way, she keeps at them by saying, come quick, we are going this way, come quick. She does that every day. When she says that, this encourages the baby chicken.
The UNESCO guidelines on language and education enable us to understand that when schools provide children quality education in their primary language, they give them 2 things, knowledge and literacy. The knowledge the children get through their first language helps make the English they hear and read more comprehensible. Literacy developed in the primary language transfers to the second language. The reason is simple. Because we learn to read by understanding the words on the page, that is, by making sense of what is decoded on that page, it's easier to read in a language we do understand. Once we can read in one language, we can read, in general. To read in other languages, we need to learn to understand and speak the new language, then apply our established literacy skills in L1 to the new additional language. Children can access knowledge and skills they're entitled to through the language they speak and understand, while they are acquiring the additional oral language over the first to 5 years of school. At this point, in mid-primary, acquired literacy skills and knowledge across the curriculum are applied to the level of spoken English they have achieved. UNESCO has also given us this very helpful metaphor of the 2-way bridge, where children bring the knowledge and skills of their first language, what they do know as minority language speakers in a majority English-speaking Australia, they bring that to learning through their first language, whilst they acquire their second and begin to cross this 2-way bridge. It's 2-way because we're teaching children to be fully competent bilingual, bicultural graduates. The 2-way bridge is just what it is. Bilingual students will cross the bridge, work in English, learn English, cross back, continue to learn in first language in a graduating form of bilingual education, which is a maintenance model. The students maintain their first language identity and culture and add an additional language and its socio-cultural mores. In a strong bilingual, biliterate and bicultural program where students have access to rich literature and other rich texts through which to learn initial literacy and to learn aspects of the curriculum using those rich texts, a pathway to the two-way bridge is facilitated. And equally essentially is the use of literature to teach spoken English, to give a context for using spoken English, because outside of the classrooms in these communities, the English is not the lingua franca. The children do not need to use any English to meet all of their needs. The only time they use English is with an English speaker, and they are very much in the minority in these communities. And at school, of course, with the English language speaker, ideally, they have time where they're learning in their first languages as well. Here's some data from a bilingual school that won a National Literacy Award in 2004. It shows the progress of students in both their first and their additional language, English. Bilingual education gave these children access to age grade equivalents in both languages. The graphs show you the students' progress over grades 5 to 7. The red is the students' progress in writing in English, the green, progress in reading in English, and the yellow, progress in first language writing over those 3 years. This school used a rich literature-based pedagogy to teach language and literacy in and through both first and additional language, thus supporting the research in the field that literacy in first language supports the acquisition of literacy in the additional language, opening that door to cognitive academic language proficiency in both languages. At some of the rich literature that has been produced in over 22 local Indigenous languages for the years that the bilingual program was very strong, beginning in 1973, ending effectively formally in 2009. Here is one of the Tiwi teachers reading a book about a man and his son going out hunting in a dugout canoe. They could potentially become stuck on a sandbar, but the father teaches the son to work with the tides to avoid that. So the problem was avoided and it ended happily ever after. Let's have a look and a listen.
Ngaramni ngini porori irpulangai wota ngaramrani. Ngaramni. Kari tapnare ngara aruklani amtia ngaramrani. Perpaparaya kapi kolowa. Potubunga tongolaka. Ninki purwata kapi kolowa. Api ngara aruklani mawe. Aya ita rapatinga. Vaya cipa puari tongolaka. Ninki kotupi premi kapi rapatinga. Patua melapari pili talhuni vaya ingkitai anuwata. Imi aroklani. Vaya cua.
much of the literature that has been produced in Indigenous first languages and still exists can teach curriculum concepts through the narrative, a lot through other genres as well, but mostly these are presented in narrative form, and the children bring their knowledge of what life is like outside of the classroom. They've seen the frogs and butterflies and bush turkeys, and what these books capture for them is a character in a book which is going through those life cycle changes. These can be linked to the biological sciences, for example, in the Australian curriculum at Year 3 level. Compare characteristics of living and non-living things and examine the differences between the life cycles of plants and animals. In the next few slides, you'll see a teacher from Bathurst Island reading a story about a turtle who lays eggs and the baby turtles, and their problem is that they have to make sure they get back to the ocean having hatched from their eggs before the seabirds come and catch them.
Kitrika moleki chimi kapi watawara. Ki chipaputi kapi tingata. Ninki nira ampriki pachu. Kari yaratrama waleni api avangari konukolovi wanuruma. Patuba ninki pinepong nimakinya.
I would now like to end this video clip by saying and thinking that not thinking, but this must be done. Indigenous, Aboriginal assistant teachers need to really think about reading storybooks done in language, Creole, in any other languages, whatever languages, the first languages of every student, that needs to be read and taught in their own language. Teaching moral of the stories written down in their own language helps them learn. It teaches them not only about lessons in life, but about our culture, which is the foundation of who we are, our culture. So teaching kids children's literature in our first language is a solid foundation, because that is actually teaching and keeping our culture strong through our language.
ACTA supports the revitalisation of vibrant, efficient and fully supported bilingual education for all of the original programs and ideally for additional schools. The Indigenous language speaking students in Australia have a right established by UNESCO to access bilingual education as the most appropriate and high quality education that can be made available to these children. As Baker reports in his compilation of research on bilingual education and bilingualism in 2001, the evidence backed by that research is that the ownership of two languages does not interfere with efficient thinking. On the contrary, bilinguals who have two well-developed languages share cognitive advantages. Bilinguals have advantages in thinking styles, particularly divergent thinking, creativity, early metalinguistic awareness, and communicative sensitivity. Research on the metalinguistic advantages of bilinguals is strong and suggests bilinguals are aware of their languages at an early age, separating form from meaning and having reading readiness earlier than monolinguals. The thousands of titles of rich literature in first language produced by the active bilingual programs 1973 to 2009 have been preserved to support this revitalisation. This revitalisation of bilingual education needs your support. in providing access to the best education possible for these students. You might like to have a look at the websites on the bottom of this page. Thank you for listening and being receptive to this idea and to the needs of these children.